My coverage of Computex 2016 is proudly sponsored by Fractal Design, MSI, and G-Skill. Alright guys, we're at the MSI booth and it's huge. There's all kinds of stuff. They have some really cool mods going on over here, including a cotton candy machine that's also a modded computer. It's done by our buddy Mike. He did a really good job and he tried to give us cotton candy, but we had to turn him down because, you know, sticky hands or whatever. And they have some really cool mods. I'll give you guys a few shots of those. Pretty sweet. But what I want to talk about is some motherboards and some graphics cards. So, MSI graphics cards. I better do this quickly because they keep getting taken out of my hands. First, let's start with this. You know when the 1080 launched and they were like, hey, it's 600 bucks, and everyone was like, okay, let's buy one for $600, and then no one could? Look at this. Pretty basic GTX 1080, but you know what? It gets the job done. And whereas it might not look as pretty as some of the other ones, it gets the job done. It's not really going to be all that much slower. Overclocking, granted, might not be quite as good. This one's using the reference PCB. Pretty basic enclosed shroud design and a blower fan. And again, should be an MSRP actually of $600. MSI actually has two other versions of the 1080 on display here though. This one is a 1080 Armor. So it's got sort of a black and white aesthetic, should match very nicely with some of their crate boards. This one does have a custom PCB, you might notice from the back. It's quite a bit thicker, so they've enhanced the power delivery on this one, and they've also given it, of course, a custom cooler, and they've even upped the power delivery from the power supply by giving it both an 8-pin, which is stock, and an additional 6-pin PCI Express power connector. So that's going to give you a little bit better overclocking compared to the what do we call this? Is this a reference version? Sure, it's a reference. I'm going to call that reference from now on. Anyway, this one is what you guys can get right now. The Armor should be coming out soon. This is the Gaming X. And this features the twin Frozer 6 cooler. MSI has redesigned this cooler. They've actually smaller heat pipes, but more of them to put them closer to the GPU die, since they are working with a smaller GPU die on this one as compared to, say, the 980 Ti or the Titan. Or Titan X, I should say. It does come with a very nice backplate, just like that. Got the MSI logo on there and some cutouts. That's pretty cool. 6-pin and 8-pin power delivery for this one as well. And looks like roughly the same PCB as the Armor, but you do get a backplate and you get that twin Frozer 6 cooler. It does feature the same size fans, but it also has an RGB LED for the MSI logo, and then it has these additional accent points that light up in red. So 3 GTX 1080s from MSI. Which one are you most excited about? The ones that look pretty, or the one that actually costs the MSRP that they told us when the 1080 launched? I'm on the fence. Let's look at these motherboards here. Actually, I want to give you guys a close-up look at the X-Power Gaming Titanium line. So right up on top, we got the X99A X-Power Gaming Titanium. Look at that nice silvery finish on there. Is it silver? No, it's titanium. Titanium is way better than silver. We also have of course, support for the newest Broadwell E processors. So if you guys are getting the 6950X and you have a little bit of money left over, what are we kidding? You don't have any money left over about a 6950X, but you could theoretically slot it into this board, of course. You got front USB Type-C. That's one of their newest things. It's actually a little port over on this side, so you can route that directly to your front panel if you don't have that available. Of course, all the added bonuses that you would expect from the MSI, including the steel reinforced memory slots as well as PCIe slots, even steel reinforced M.2 slots now. Those damn M.2 cards are always getting so antsy, trying to jump out of your board and break free. Not anymore. Not with the steel reinforced M.2 slot. Anyway, if Broadwell E is too rich for your blood, let's move down to the Z170 X-Power Gaming Titanium. Again, you have the sort of same look and aesthetic. You got this little add-on PCB right here that gives you some additional capabilities while overclocking, including surface-mounted buttons for power and reset, as well as some voltage control. You can automatically boost your multiplier if you want to directly here. If it works like I've seen this work in the past, you can usually choose 0.1 or full megahertz increments. And then you also have some of the steel reinforced slots right here. They didn't do it on the memory, but you know, memory is not really all that heavy or anything. And then you also have an integrated USB. Looks like a Type-C, not a Type-C, but a USB 3 port right there. That's interesting. These boards all going to have USB 3.1, of course. And then finally down here, the Z170A M-Power Gaming Titanium. The M-Power and the X-Power are both very similar. The M-Power is just a little bit higher end, so you get all the steel reinforced good stuff right there. Really huge heatsink over the VRMs there. It seems like they're really going for overclocking with this board for sure. Other than that, very same aesthetic look as the other two we just showed you. 4 DIMM slots, Z170 chipset, LG 1151. Give yourself a Skylake processor and drop it in there. Here's an interesting little motherboard, and I really want your guys' opinion on this one. This is the B150 Motors Arctic. So you'll notice they have a white PCB, and I've been quite fond of white PC motherboards in the past. They've even gone so far as to specially request little white LGA 1150 processor socket covers, which is kind of cool. Anyway, so apart from the actual aesthetic design of this, white PCB and digicamo, it's a B150 chipset. So that means you're not going to be able to overclock. There's a couple other limitations to it as well, but we're told this is going to be a little bit more of a budget motherboard, so we're still not sure on the price. They're still figuring that out, but I'm curious what you guys think. Is this a compelling motherboard with the B150 chipset, or my opinion was I'd like to see this with a Z170 in it, because I feel like for a nice micro ATX motherboard that looks really nice and clean, especially if you're building like a nice overclock system or maybe even water cooling or something like that, I think that could fit in really well. Whereas a B150, granted, it could give you a really nice price to performance ratio, especially if you're going for something like a 6400 or 6500, but I just don't get as excited when I can't overclock, if you know what I mean. And here's one other motherboard I want to show you. This is a Workstation board, X99A. So again, you're going to have Broadwell support, but you're also going to have support for ECC memory, which might be a compelling option for you, depending on what you're using the board for, of course. Interesting thing about this board is that they've done some clever routing of the PCIe lanes to give you support for 3-way SLI or Crossfire, as well as U.2, M.2, and SATA Express. And you can run those at full speed all at the same time. I at first thought, is there a PLX bridge or something in there? No, that's not really the case. It's just 8, 8, 8, 4, 4, and 4, which actually adds up to like 38 or something like that. Even got a couple lanes left over. That's super convenient. Other than that, dual Intel NICs on this board, which is pretty cool, and just seems like going to be a viable option for a workstation. Even looks pretty nice for a workstation board. It's got some yellow accents on it. What do you think, Kyle?
Yellow's cool.
Okay, one last workstation board. This is a C236M Workstation 10G, and the only reason I want to show you this board, they've integrated 10 gigabit Intel NIC onto there. And believe it or not, 10 gig NICs are so freaking, they generate so much heat, you gotta have a beefy heatsink on there. So that's a bigger heatsink than you need even for the chipset. Anyway, I just want to show you that MSI did a workstation board with an integrated 10 gigabit NIC. Kind of want one. Anyway, guys, that's all for this video. Thank you so much for watching. I'd like to say one last thank you to my sponsors, Fractal Design, MSI, and G-Skill for sending me to Computex. Hit the thumbs up button, click the sponsor links down in the video description. We'll see you in the next video.